good morning, and it's time for Politically Speaking with your host, Larry Novak. Heard every Saturday morning at 11:05. Join in by calling 508-822-1106. It's time for Larry Novak and Politically Speaking.
This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. I thought today we would discuss the new election of the new Republican state chairman in Massachusetts. He won by a convincing majority. James Lyons, the former state rep from Andover, who was a leading conservative in the State House of Representatives. Mr. Lyons has a very tough task in front of him. He has to turn around the dropping registration numbers of people identifying with the Massachusetts Republican Party. He needs to increase representation at the local levels and increase to elect more state reps and senators and elect a Republican congressman. A major uphill battle for him. He defeated the treasurer, Brent Anderson, by a huge margin. Mr. Anderson's personality, I think, was the reason for the rejection. He was rejected 47-30, which is a huge vote in one of those races. It's usually 2 votes either way. The conservatives reasserted control over the Republican State Committee, defeating the moderate wing by an overwhelming majority, which indicates a lot of moderates supported Lyons. Which would we go think? Now let's look at the district. My state committee man, Gordon Andrews, of course supported the losing candidate. Gordon has never been on the winning side on any race in this district. He supported John Kingston for U.S. Senate. Mr. Kingston came in third in the primary in the 2nd Plymouth district. He supported he supported Brent Anderson, who was overwhelmingly defeated by the members of the state committee. It's time for change in the 2nd Plymouth Bristol district. Mr. Gordon Andrews does not represent the mainstream. He represents an ideological field unto himself. He doesn't have mainstream values. He was a state committee man that proposed allowing the chairman increased appointments to the state convention to favor his candidate. Well, democracy won out, and that proposal was overwhelmingly rejected at the state committee meeting. Mr. Andrews then was a floor leader for the failed candidacy of John Kingston, which everybody knew Mr. Kingston, who attacked President Trump, was going nowhere. But Gordon Andrews continued to arm twist and tried to throw off the Brockton delegation. Now it's time to tell it like it is. Mr. Andrews orchestrated the challenge by the Kingston campaign to seating the Brockton delegates. It was Mr. Andrews who orchestrated it. He tries to throw his weight around, but he's failed to even hold a regional meeting of all the town chairmen in that Senate district. He has failed to raise any money for any of the town committees. He fails to give any money. He fails to even go to the meetings, one of the principal tasks that he has. He has not been to Brockton since the election of delegates. And he only came to Brockton for the election of delegates to challenge them. Shame, shame on Mr. Andrews. He doesn't represent the mainstream. He represents a selfish interest promoting Gordon Andrews. To what, I do not know. He is now presently, he's a title seeker. He's a member of 2 school committees elected, but he never had any opponent for either one of them. So he does that. He is also state committee man, the treasurer of the Plymouth County and I think the town committee in Halifax. The town committee in Halifax used to be the most Republican in the state. It has slipped. It doesn't hold as many offices as it used to. Mr. Andrews is an invincible state committee man. We'll have to send out the hound dogs to find him. He would not come back to Brockton after he challenged the delegates to face the music of an angry committee at him. Now, shame on you, Gordon Andrews. The election is coming shortly, and you will be challenged. It is time to tell it is. Our Senate district used to be one of the best in the state. Under his leadership, it has gone from fully organized to barely organized. That's great leadership. Failed leadership of Gordon Andrews continues to haunt the 2nd Plymouth Bristol district. He was one of Mr. Deal's, when he ran for the state senate, major backers. And look what happened. Deal gets buried in the Brockton area. Maybe if everybody knew that Mr. Andrews doesn't even come to the meetings in Brockton, they would have a different opinion. Shame, shame, shame. And his power supporters on the Republican State Committee who promote him selfishly will now come to an end. Mr. Lyons is going to hopefully build the grassroots of the Republican Party. Mr. Andrews will be remembered for his support of the failed candidacy of Brent Anderson. It's time for change, so the 2nd Plymouth Bristol district isn't the laughing stock of the state. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. You can reach us at 508-822-1106. I'd like to hear your ideas of what you think needs to be done to rebuild the Republican Party in the state.
We're at a very important time, I think, for the Republican Party in this state. I think the election of Jim Lyons, I think that's going to be very important for this party here in the state.
Well, Mr. Lyons has an uphill fight to bring some semblance of balance. It's never good that one political party dominates every aspect of government. It isn't healthy, even if it's Republican or Democrat. You want a breadth of ideas that serve the public needs. That's what we need. Well, when we look at the 2nd Plymouth Bristol district, we see a district in decline. Eastern Town Committee rarely meets. The other committees rarely meet. They don't have full membership. Where's the leadership that should be there? Where is the leadership to get them together? Where is the leadership to get them out to a monthly meeting? Where is the leadership to promote Republican principles? What is the plan? What are you going to do about the future? What is your blueprint for the future? We have seen no leadership ability coming out of the incumbent state committee man. He has yet to show leadership ability. And the voters of Halifax should take that in consideration when they go to the polls again. If you can't do your job, then resign. It's time for change. You were a holdover to begin with. You won on a special election where 30 people decided who the Republican State Committee man was going to be, not by the voters. You won because you were the incumbent in the last election and your opponent spent no money and the governor did 5 mailings for you. You when you had an opponent, if you have an opponent that spends money, raises money, and goes out to articulate the differences, you will be retired. Give us a call if you think Gordon Andrews has done a good job at 508-822-1106. The failed leadership of Gordon Andrews on the Republican State Committee is astounding to me. This was a district that was one of the best in the state. Field candidates raised money and helped the Republican state party. The donations to the state party have reached an all-time low under Mr. Gordon Andrews' leadership. Why? Because he doesn't meet the mainstream of the voters. He doesn't focus on what the voters want. It's not what the special interest in the Republican Party want. It's what the average voter wants. Shame, shame on Gordon Andrews. Shame on your support of somebody out of the mainstream like Brent Anderson. Shame on you. We will see elections coming up. I don't know if, Joey, can you look up when the papers come out for ward and town committees and Secretary of State's election division? That's the next fight that you go to the Secretary of State's election division and see the calendar. I don't know when the dates are, but I would imagine they'll be out in June. And that's when the president we will see more. Now getting on to the presidential race. Who would support Elizabeth Warren for president? I am just astounded that this woman is running for the office of the presidency. Her vision isn't mainstream. Her vision doesn't represent middle America. She will have a very difficult time, in my estimation, of carrying the South. She will have a difficult time in the Midwest and West. But I've been wrong before, and I can be wrong again. What is your opinion? Should Elizabeth Warren run for president? 508-822-1106.
Short answer from me, no.
Were you able to locate the calendar for this 19 at the
What does it say?
You go to Secretary of State Election Division.
Yeah.
And then go to calendar.
Calendar, okay. I'm looking.
It will be interesting to see what is, when the presidential primary papers are out.
Notices?
In Massachusetts, you gain access to the primary by just being mentioned in the paper, if I recall it right. You do not have to actually campaign to get signatures. That's one of the few that you don't need to do. I don't know if it's out yet. We'll have to call and ask this week. It isn't on the website as of yet. I'm there now, and I do not see it. But it's in 2019, I think it's June, the papers become available to fill up the ward and town committees. Candidates will be needed for both political parties. That's the function. They represent the party at the local level, and they go on to the state level. After that, they caucus and they elect a new party chairman, secretary, treasurer, and national committee people. Our national committee people are Kiko Oro from Lakeville, Republican. Ron Kaufman allegedly lives in Boston, but spends most of his time in lobbying work in Washington, D.C. So he is the national committee man and has been for a number of years. I would imagine after the Conservatives took the state committee, he will be challenged as he is one of the moderate votes on the Republican National Committee. And he was always saved before by the Bushes, and I don't think they would have the clout to save anyone today in Massachusetts. So it's on to new fights, another day, a new horizon. The Conservatives have now taken over the state committee. We'll see what they can do with it. Will they be able to raise any money? Question. Will they be able to field candidates? Question. Will they be able to elect candidates? Another question. But first and foremost, they've got to keep the doors open, and that costs a lot of money. Will the governor cooperate with them? Who knows? Or will they go into a downward cycle as in previous historical patterns, where when we control the governor's office, we lose everything else? It is a lesson to be learned yet, but history has a tendency to repeat. And I think this could be 1974 all over again, where the where the Conservatives controlled the state party, and they were not able to raise any money, which is sad. Hopefully people will give and make contributions to the political parties, because it really is that keeps democracy functioning. Hopefully, the Republican State Committee will run a full slate of candidates for Senate and House. Hopefully, they'll be able to do that, and they'll continue the battle onwards. Anybody interested in running against Michelle Du Bois in Brockton, give me a call at 781-600-1566. We are looking for a candidate against Michelle Du Bois in Brockton. Please give me a call if you're interested at 781-600-1566. Now, that's my personal cell phone, and I will gladly show you what needs to be done. This is Larry Novak, and we were discussing the failed leadership of State Committee man Gordon Andrews for the Republican Party. He was a major force in leading the charge for the new Republican State Chairman, Brent Anderson, who was overwhelmingly defeated. I looked up my old notes when I was on the state committee. Nobody has ever suffered such a humiliating defeat as 47-30 when Mr. Lyons was elected. That is a total rejection of Brent Anderson. Mr. Andrews is out of step in this district. He was a candidate that proposed the rule change that would allow the chairman to appoint another additional 150 more delegates at the state convention. The Cape Cod paper came out swinging against it, an editorial attacking Mr. Andrews as ill-advised and ill-conceived power grab to support the failed candidacy of John Kingston. Mr. Andrews is simply not in the mainstream of this district. He serves on 2 school committees, elected. Neither has ever been opposed. He won a special election where only 30 people elected him as state committee person, where the meeting was held in Halifax Hanson to favor his candidacy. He allowed the Republican City Committee to get demolished. He allowed it to go down to 16 people under the leadership of the former present school committee man in Ward 3. He allowed people whose voice are considered to be the extreme extreme in the city of Brockton to gain a foothold. His leadership has been a dismal failure for the 2nd Plymouth Bristol District. He has failed to hold any meetings. He has failed to stay in touch with members of the cities and town committees. He has failed at every aspect of the job. The voters should be reminded of this. When you look at the town committees in the district, Easton barely functions now. Brockton, since I've taken it back over, is more active than any committee in the district. Hanover, whereas one of the most Republican towns in the state, it barely meets under the leadership of Mr. Andrews. Plimpton is unorganized under the leadership of Mr. Andrews. You will go to Whitman, which is an interesting case. They have done very well in elected local officials, but the committee isn't even full. You then go to, you look around and you start examining these cases and you wonder what has happened to the Republican Party. It's disappearing. The registration numbers in the district under Gordon Andrews' leadership have dropped from 14% down to 10%. We have lost thousands of Republicans under his failed leadership. Shame, shame, shame on the Republicans that support his failed operation. It is an interesting dichotomy when you look at active districts where they elect Republicans. He is a seeker of titles, Mr. Andrews. It must build his ego. But you know what? There has to be performance with the job to build a title. You are known for what you accomplish, and you are known for being an activist when you actually go out and activate the area, not disactivate it. We need change, and this program endorses change. Gordon Andrews must go. His failed leadership is going to lead the Republican Party and put it back 20 years. It's time for change.
You know who else suffered a major defeat? Theresa May.
Yes, Theresa May did suffer a major defeat, and her days are numbered in my estimation. It was a humiliating defeat where she lost more than half of her own body.
432 to 202 was the vote.
And she
for the Brexit deal.
And she controls Parliament.
Yes, but she narrowly survived a no confidence vote.
What was
19 votes.
Which would indicate that Theresa May's days are very numbered.
I think so, too. One more mistake and she's out.
Theresa May is the British Prime Minister and leader of the Conservative Party in England. But she doesn't fit the mainstream of what the Conservatives want in England. And that is interesting. President Trump, I just looked at it, approval rating is up. Nancy Pelosi's is down. I don't think the tit-for-tat thing is a good thing for America, where she was going to cancel the president's address to Congress, State of the State Union address. And he canceled her plane trip out of the country. I don't think that's a good thing. I think this is becoming far too personal and not in the best interest of the average American.
Did you see that letter that he penned to Nancy Pelosi? That letter of his?
Yes, I saw it. And he is going to address the nation. Is it tonight? Sunday night.
It was today. It was sometime today. I don't know if it's tonight.
He is going to put his proposal to the American people and ask for support, which will be interesting to see what type of support he is. You're on the air with Larry Novak. You're on the... Hello?
Could you send me the temperature outside.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I'd like to know the temperature outside.
The temperature outside?
Yeah.
1 second.
Hold on.
34 degrees.
34?
34.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Well, we got our first call today. They wanted to know what the temperature was.
Interesting call.
Whether, which we hopefully serviced it well. As you look forward, these minor offices that create great commotion really have a major cog in the function of democracy. If you don't elect people that are doers, nothing gets done. The ballot will be empty. Where was he? Mr. Andrews never advised the Senate candidate, as I understand. He never donated to the Senate candidate. He never donated to any of the candidates running in the district. Shame, shame, shame. The function of a Republican state committee man is to elect Republicans, raising money for them, and getting them around. Gordon, where were you? Gordon, why did you support John Kingston? Gordon, why did you challenge the delegates in the city of Brockton, which was overwhelmingly rejected by the Credentials Committee, Gordon? So you don't even have the support of your brethren. Gordon, why do you keep going out on these limbs and creating enemies for the district? Why don't you represent the mainstream of the Republican primary voter in the 2nd Plymouth District? Gordon, your failed leadership, we now know we need a change. The voters need to be informed of your failed leadership. Hopefully, they will retire you and elect somebody that will do the job and not a title seeker. You have failed. All you care about is seeking more titles to further your own ego. It's time that you get a real job in the real private industry and return to private practice. Hopefully, we will continue discussing and monitoring Gordon Andrews' activities on the Republican State Committee. If anybody thinks he's doing a good job, which we haven't got one call to that effect, give us a call. We'd love to discuss it with you at 508-822-1106. Or is he simply a name on the ballot? Joey, have you ever heard of Gordon Andrews?
No.
And you live in Middleborough.
I live in Middleborough.
Right. Well, that goes to show what a wonderful job he's done as state committee man. He's the most visible state committee man in the Plymouth County. Well, it's an interesting dichotomy. Well, what do you think, Joey? That is there elections coming up in Middleborough?
Yes, April 6th.
For what?
Board of Selectmen, they have 2 coming up, 2 positions available. Leilani Delpy, I hope I'm saying that correct, and John Knowlton.
They're both not running.
Yeah, John Knowlton is not running.
And
Leilani Delpy, I believe, is running for re-election. I'm not 100%
I thought
sure.
there were 2 vacancies.
There's two incumbents, not vacancies.
How many vacancies?
One vacancy.
One vacancy.
One vacancy in the Board of Selectmen.
And what else is up? Is the town clerk?
Gas and electric commissions. There's two up for re-election. School committee, there's 2. Board of Assessors, there's 1. Finance committee, there's 3 members for 3 years and 1 member for 2 years.
Which is a huge commitment of time. These are more or less like volunteer positions.
The planning board, they have 1 planning board member for 5, 1 planning board member for a year, and 1 planning board member for 3 years. There's 3 people up for re-election.
That's a diverse group.
Yes, and park commissioner, there's 1 up for re-election for a 3-year term, and housing authority, one housing authority member for 5 years.
Joey, I hear you're starting a new show. Tell the public about it.
Yes, I am. It's gonna be probably the last week of March, first week of April. It'll be on a Sunday at 7 a.m. It's gonna be called Middleborough in Review. We're gonna talk all things Middleborough from week to week. It's gonna be a fun show.
And you're going to be the host of that show.
Yes, I am.
And you're going to have people on?
I will absolutely have people on, yes.
And you're going to talk about what's new in Middleborough.
Yes. Because this year is a very important year for Middleborough. We are celebrating 350 years as a town.
That's very good.
Yes.
And you're looking forward to this new show?
Absolutely, yep.
Well, getting back to the political discussions of the day, we have seen the president is going to address the nation, try to seize the initiative on it. He is more popular than Nancy Pelosi in all the polls coming out this week. Nancy Pelosi's popularity is now down to 24%. 47% have an unfavorable opinion of her, and it continues to escalate. It will be interesting to see if the president is able to negotiate a settlement to the government shutdown. I think he should stay the course. If he believes in this wall, to build it, and it will stop the influx of Americans. And that is an interesting point. Now, 54% of Americans believe the wall should be built. 54%. Only 34% agree with Nancy Pelosi. The wall should be built. What is your opinion? Do we need a wall on our southern border? Give us a call at 508-822-1106. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, and I'd like to hear your opinions. Joey, do you think the wall should be built?
Absolutely.
Now, you're young and you're in college. Do you find that most of your contemporaries believe that?
And at college, no.
Are they against the wall?
They're most likely against the wall, yes. Most people.
Well, I don't know if that's... The recent polling is showing a swing in support of the wall. So the president's message is getting out.
Yeah. I think people are starting to believe in it, and
I think they understand the security issue.
Yeah.
Should we have open borders? Should anybody be able to come into the United States that wants? Should we be able to keep terrorists out? Or is the rule of law blocking all that? Those are the key questions. When can the government effectuate change on the immigration stuff? The immigration system has been broken for years and still isn't fixed. They talk about it, and Washington accomplishes nothing. It doesn't get anything done. They fight like children and accomplish nothing for the betterment of society. I think it's time to clean them all out. I see that Congressman Lynch today attacked the president on some issue. Why don't they all get along and do what's in the best interest of America? I wonder that. I don't get it. I'll never get it. I would think after an election that one side won and the other side, it's a stalemate, took the Senate, increased its odds, that they should now work for the common good of the United States citizens. I do not believe, I believe if the polls are right and was placed on the ballot, people would vote for the wall. And what would the elected officials, why do they try to circumvent the will of the American people? Why? They're there as our public servants to do what we want done. I think you should call your congressman if you think the wall should be built. Get in touch with them, write them letters, continue the fight. No, change never comes easy in America. It comes very difficult. And if you believe in something, you have to fight every inch of the way. Otherwise, you get rolled over by the system, and they'll do everything they can to stop you. You're on the air with Larry Novak.
Hi, Larry.
Hi.
Until the chief of labor expressed the stop for the Republican behalf and in the Democrat behalf, loading us with newly minted Democratic voters, there's not going to be any wall built.
Well, if we get enough public pressure on them, they'll build the wall. That's the only thing they understand. They want those paychecks. It's $177,000. It's a lot of money to be a congressman now.
That's absolutely ridiculous. They serve themselves, Larry. They serve themselves. They don't serve the people that put them there. They don't serve the general public good. It's sickening.
I think that's happening in every office now in the land. They're all out for their own self-interest, not in what the public wants.
I don't know, Larry. It doesn't look good. If this keeps up, I think of what happened in ancient Rome. If I remember what I read correctly, everything starts to disintegrate. All right, Larry, you guys have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for the call. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, and the lines are open. You can reach me at 508-822-1106. And I agree with that gentleman. Everything's just going to decline. The system isn't working well. The Democrats trying to obstruct the will of the people. When you lose an election, you lose, and you don't try to obstruct change. You support the change. The majority wanted another voice. It's wrong what's going on. Hopefully, we will hear from more people that think the wall should be built. Should we build the wall on the southern border? Give us a call at 508-822-1106. Fight. Get out there and articulate change. Fight for it.
So, the first major election of 2019 in this country is coming up pretty quickly now.
Is that the Commonwealth of Virginia's governor's race?
No, it's Chicago, I believe. I didn't check the date for Virginia, but Chicago mayoral race is coming up.
And if they continue, it is now the city of murder.
Yeah.
The crime is out of control in Chicago with no end in sight.
Yep.
And if they elect part of the machine again, it will continue to decline. Look at the areas where the Democratic machine has worked. They don't function. Government comes to a standstill. They talk about all they're going to do, but none of it ever gets done. It's the failed policies of the left. And I am so disgusted after spending 40 years of building up this district to see Gordon Andrews, and I'm going to be on my high horse on this, destroy the Republican Party in the 2nd Plymouth Bristol district. Town committees unorganized. Crazy proposals at state committee to increase the appointment of delegates to favor his candidacy. He doesn't consult with anybody. He thinks he's God. He thinks he just he can dictate the policy to the towns in the district. Shame on you, Gordon Andrews. Shame, shame, shame. I wonder if he'll even show up in the city of Brockton to donate to any of the local candidates running for office. I doubt it. He thinks he's above all that. Well, he won't have the governor funding probably the state committee campaigns the next time, and he cannot afford to run a race on his own.
So the Chicago race, it's coming up pretty quick. It's the 26th of February. And there's two people who are tied for the lead right now. according to newer polls, and that's Perekwinkle, hope I'm saying that correctly, and Mendoza. First name.
Which neither one of them are well-known names. What do they do?
I can look that up. Hold on one sec.
Prinkwinkle?
Pinkwinkle?
I'm not 100% sure how to even pronounce that name. Let me look that
And
up.
you know what? I've never understood when things are as bad as they are in Chicago and Detroit, why they don't change political parties that are in charge. It baffles my mind. It always has. The decline of the city of Brockton has been under Democratic leadership since 1974. Look at the city. A picture speaks 1,000 words. And take a picture of Brockton, drug dealers, prostitutes, crime on the streets. That's their leadership. That's their America, their vision of America, their vision of the future. That's what you want to give to your kids? Shame, shame, shame. But I hope we are bringing up different ideas about what is wrong in America. If you believe that it's on the right course, the proverb, then you should vote for the incumbents. If you don't, vote for change. Massachusetts is out of the mainstream. It has a whole congressional delegation of one political party. So when the other political parties in power, they have no influence.
So I have the names here. Susanna Mendoza and Tony Perekwinkle.
What are they?
Right, obviously.
What?
Susanna Mendoza, former Illinois House of Rep. She's former city clerk of Chicago and Illinois comptroller.
Controller.
Okay. And Tony was Perekwinkle.
She holds a statewide office.
Yeah, she Cook County Board of Commissioners.
No, supervisors.
Yes.
He's a supervisor in Cook County Board.
So Susanna Mendoza, I think, has a better chance of winning because she has more experience.
Yeah, more name ID and probably more money. And it does come down, people, to money. Jim Lyons for state reps spent $100,000, was outspent 3-1. For maybe 4-1. The woman that ran against him for state reps spent $400,000 in Andover. That's obscene. I just can't believe that's where we're heading, for that kind of money to be a state rep that pays $70,000 a year. It's a shame. It's not good politics, and it's becoming who can purchase these seats. You do what you got to do, but there's a time and a place that a state rep starts costing $300,000 and $400,000 to run. Will anybody run? I doubt it. Next week, I finally will get the letter off this weekend to have candidates, people that have been Republican activists, come in and talk about how to rebuild the GOP in Massachusetts. Come up with a blueprint. Excuse me. I'm coming down with a cold, or getting over a cold. I want to discuss why we have a one-party system in the state, and it's becoming overwhelmingly one party. Is it name ID? Is it the power structure? Are the rules fair on campaign financing? Do they favor the Democratic Party? Are they written to favor the Democratic Party? What about the fairness issue? Do they want a two-party system in Massachusetts? I don't know. It's surely the last results of the statewide ticket were disappointing at best. and lead you to question what will happen and will there be future contests for statewide offices. The amount of money needed is astronomical. You need a minimum of $1 million to run a statewide campaign now. And that's a lot of money to raise. And can it be raised by a weak opposition party? I do not know the answer to that. Do you, Joey?
So, I don't. So out of all the declared candidates in Chicago, there are exactly 0 Republicans.
Well, it shows you a complete breakdown in the party out there, and it has been that way before. It used to be a totally Republican city in the 50s, and then went Democrat.
Out of the major declared candidates that I can find, all of them are Democrat.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. It's a Democratic stronghold in Illinois. And a Republican stands a very poor chance to get. And this is a city that is riddled by gun violence, a city riddled by corruption, a city that doesn't function, and there are no Republicans running. When the city ran well, it was under Republican control. Look at the cities. When you start examining the records of these mayors, they're atrocious. It's not about who you employ, it's about services to the constituents that live there. We have screwed up in the people we elect. The Republicans are weak in the state, have been for years. They're down to 10%, and they don't understand that they have to, get a message out, have to get people involved. It's not about a ship on the Titanic, because this Titanic is gone. It's under now. The failed leadership of people who have no standing in their communities that could not do or bring a dime to a political party. They shouldn't be the leaders of it. If they are, shame on the Republicans that elected them. Shame, shame, shame. It's the people that produce. Well, next week we will be talking with some activists, and we will have a discussion on how to rebuild the grassroots. This has been Larry Novak. I've enjoyed this hour with you. It's flown by as usual. On to other things and on to victory.
So I just want to mention the Falkland Islands. They have a election coming up.
The Falkland Islands is remembered because it made Margaret Thatcher the Prime Minister of England, where she decided against opposition from the United States and President Reagan that she was going to retake the islands with British troops. Yeah. She did. She went on to become to raise the prestige of Britain again all over the world. She sent in a battle fleet and ordered them, regardless of casualties, to take back the islands. They did. They beat Argentina. They beat the Argentine junta, and she toppled the government after that in Argentina. They were so embarrassed over their defeat. It made her.
So I just want to say this. They have a referendum on reforming the electoral system over there. And it's scheduled to be in November 7th. The voters there will be asked if they want to replace the 2 existing electoral constituencies, Camp and Stanley, with a single constitutionary for the whole island.
Well, it should. Everybody has a right to vote, so they should. That should be an easy one.
Yeah.
I don't think they're given a seat in Parliament because there's not enough voters there.
Under Section 27 of the Falkland Islands Constitution, any change to the constituencies on the islands must be supported in a referendum by at least 2/3 of those who are registered as electors in each constituent.
So they put it on the ballot. The people will decide. And I need to sign off. It is now after 12. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. Join us next week.